Okay, welcome everyone to the July 6th Planning Commission meeting. Stephanie, could you establish a quorum for us, please? Could you do a call so we have established a quorum? We're all learning together.
Okay. Commissioner Disney? Absent. Commissioner Benonato? Absent. Commissioner Duran?
Here.
Commissioner Roach?
Here.
Commissioner Steinle?
Here.
Vice Chair Ahi?
Here.
And Chair Mensinger.
Here. So we have 5 members, which does constitute a quorum. Next, if there are any comments from the public on items not on the agenda. Okay, I'll take that as there are not. Then we're going to move into our consent calendar, which is the approval of the minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Sure, second.
Second. So moved and seconded. Do you want to take a vote?
Commissioner Duran?
Yes, I approve.
Commissioner Roach?
Yes.
Commissioner Steinle?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ahi?
Yes.
And Chair Mensinger.
Yes. Okay, we're now moving into our first of 2 public hearings. I believe Commissioner Duran is going to recuse on this because she is in the neighborhood.
I'm a neighbor. I have to recuse, so I will be stepping out.
We will let you know when we're back.
Thank you.
Okay, our first public hearing is on the request for a change in the conditional use permit at 1150 Riverside Drive. So let's start off with the staff report.
All right. Sorry, trying to get back to Zoom. Let me try to restart. Hold on one sec. Okay. Can you... I just used the link and the...
Get back in.
Should I raise my hand? Okay, fighting through some technical difficulties. Here we go. Ta-da! All right. I'm Steve Golden, Senior Planner for the City of Los Altos. Before you is a request for a modification of a conditional use permit for the Los Altos Veterinary Clinic, which was approved in 2019, and a variance to allow the expansion of a use into the adjacent tenant space And the variance would allow for an exception to an objective standard in the municipal code. There we go. Sorry, trying to figure out some of the stuff. 1150 Riverside Drive is a half-acre parcel on Riverside Drive and Fremont Avenue, adjacent to Foothill Expressway. It's west of the Rancho Shopping Center. To the rear of the subject site, which is on the slide with a little marker there in the middle, is Hale Creek and also single-family houses to the rear. The existing building is approximately 7,700 square feet in size. So in 2019, the applicant applied for a conditional use permit for an animal clinic. An animal clinic is considered a limited conditional use in the CN district, which this parcel is in. So that requires a conditional use permit. And in 2019, the commission approved the conditional use permit, but it only approved it for the operation in this 3,037 square foot tenant space. And with that, the commission also approved a variance to allow this limited conditional use to operate within 50 feet of a R1 district, which in the municipal code, typically limited conditional uses are restricted to not operate within 50 feet of a R1 district. And I'll go through that a little bit more in the next slides. So what the applicant is requesting at this point is to expand into the 1,672 square foot tenant space to the right of the existing space. That's unit 1148 and 1144 for a total combined area of 4,709 square feet. They're not proposing any external changes to the building, except for modification of a new lobby area. And the applicant is going to have a little presentation, and so they'll tell you all about their program for what this additional space will allow for, and specific animal clinic operations. But with this request, they're not proposing any significant changes to their operations. There is a statement of proposed operation in the approval resolution, and it's an exhibit there. I would say that in further discussion with the applicant, we discussed the hours of operation, and the original approval allowed for a slightly different hours. And so we would recommend the commission consider the applicant to operate all weekdays from 8 to 7, which is a little bit of an expansion. That's in the conditions. And then on the weekends, 8 to 5 on both Saturday and Sunday, which is normal business hours. And again, I'll give them a little bit of flexibility should they want to operate beyond their current hours. With regards to making findings for the conditional use permit, I'm not going to go through all of the findings that are listed in the resolution, but staff has provided justification for the positive findings consistent with the municipal code, and it's very similar to the findings that the commission approved in 2019. I would say that one specific findings that has to be made for an animal clinic is for a parking assessment to make sure there's enough parking. And in this case, we took a look at two factors for parking, and we think that there's sufficient parking. First, the parking demand for this type of office space is less than what the building was originally built for. So for retail personal service, the typical parking demand in the code is 1 space for each 200 square feet. There actually isn't a parking demand in the code for animal clinic, but the next closest thing is an office space, which is 1 per 300. So that's a reduction in demand. And then also, as you probably know, Rancho Shopping Center has a lot of parking. We did a count, and there's about 329 parking spaces in total. That's including the building to the west of Riverside Drive, 1150, where the applicant is operating, and then the main parking area. And I say about because there's been changes over the years and did our best based on the aerial photography. So there is a lot of parking out there for use by the applicant. Moving on to the variance request. Again, within the CN district, a limited conditional use is prohibited within 50 feet of an R1 district. On this slide, you can see that the arrows designating the parcel, the subject parcel, and just behind it is the R1 10 district with residences. There are 3 findings in the code. I'm not going to read them all, but with regards to the first finding, we know that the animal clinic is consistent with the objectives in the zoning code because it's providing a beneficial service to the community. It creates synergy with other businesses in the shopping center, and it's a convenient relationship to the residents that have animals for the clinic. And the variance is not going to be detrimental to health, safety, or welfare of persons in the vicinity. It's already been operating for nearly 3 years. We haven't had any complaints or code violations. And then finally, the third findings is the one that we usually discuss the most, which is what is unique about this parcel? Why do the standards? Why don't we have to apply them in this situation? And similar to what we found in 2019, we did find unique circumstances, the physical characteristics of this particular property and the relationship of the particular residences in this situation. So as this slide shows, to the rear of the veterinary clinic is a creek. It's Hell Creek. It has very steep banks on either side. The applicant has some pictures which will show that. There's mature riparian vegetation, and the existing building has about a 20-foot setback to the creek, which is mostly to the center of the creek, which is mostly the steep banks. On the abutting side, to the rear at 1139 is a residence, but there's a 30-foot easement that the water district holds, and that property owner can't build in that easement area. We did not find any easements at 1129 Parma, but the physical characteristics are very similar with steep banks of the creek. And then in addition, there's no doors or windows on the rear of the building at 1150 Riverside, and the applicant is not proposing any use in the rear of the building. So it's not going to be a used area, and it's physically separated from the surrounding area. So basically, if the intent of the 50-foot separation was to limit potential conflicts, and it was just a distance that somebody thought of 50 feet, then all of these other physical characteristics, the fact that there's the steep banks of the creek, the easement, the setbacks of the house, and various other physical features, staff recommends that the commission find that those are the unique circumstances surrounding why the 50-foot separation should not be applied in this situation. And then also, as the commission should be aware, we did receive several letters of support, including businesses and neighbors in the surrounding area, and those were forwarded to the commission for review. So with that, staff is recommending that the commission find the project to be categorically exempt from CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, pursuant to Section 15301, which is for existing facilities. We're recommending that the commission approve the variance to allow the limited conditional use within the 50 feet of an R1 district, subject to the findings in the approval resolution. And finally, staff is recommending an approval of the modification of the conditional use permit to allow expansion of the animal clinic, with the caveat we recommend to modify condition number 5 to expand the hours of operation from 8 to 7 on the weekdays and 8 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I can take any questions that you might have. Okay. Give me 1 sec, because I'm gonna get their thing going here. And hopefully this doesn't die on me. So if you want to just do it, just hit the
Yes, and we do have one member of the public online that has their hand raised as well.
For this item?
Correct.
Okay, when we get through public comments, thanks.
Is this on? Okay. Hi, good evening. Thank you, honorable commissioners and everyone, for being here tonight. It's my pleasure to present to you my wonderful clinic that I'm super, super proud of, and that we're hoping can expand just a little bit to get a little bit more space. I'm Melissa Bryant-Neal. I'm the owner and the medical director of the Los Altos Veterinary Clinic. And these are pictures. You'll see several pictures of people that you may notice. These are their pets. These are all pets of the clinic and some of our staff pets as well. So on this first slide, you'll notice the current picture of our clinic from the outside in the bottom right corner. That is the part of 1150 Riverside that we currently reside in. And we have patients in there on a daily basis. When we were during COVID, everything was outside in the parking lot when we opened originally. So it's been really nice to have everybody back inside. And so I'm excited to show you some of the shots of the inside of the clinic. A little bit about the history of our clinic. It started in 1958 as the Kindness Pet Hospital. It was located in downtown Los Altos, and there were several other veterinarians that ran it up until 1990 when Dr. Glenn Eckert bought it and had run it for all the way through to 2020. And he was here at our previous meeting in 2019 when we requested the original conditional use permit. In 2019, we all came before you and requested the conditional use permit. We had several letters of support from the community. It was a really amazing turnout, and the CUP was granted at that time for us to move to the Rancho Shopping Center. The reason we needed to move is Dr. Eckert was retiring and he sold the property, and so we needed to move the vet clinic. And that's how we ended up at the Rancho Shopping Center, which has been an amazing home for this clinic. I purchased the clinics shortly after that in January of 2020. And we didn't move all the way until the end of 2020 because, of course, it took time to build the clinic out. And the pictures here, Dr. Eckert's on the left there. That's me at the pet parade, which we participate in every year. And that's our staff at the bottom participating in the pet parade. We had an amazing time this year. I'm really proud of our team. We grew the clinic from 1 doctor and 3 staff initially to we now have 6 doctors and 22 support staff. We're not looking to be significantly bigger. We're not looking to take over all of Rancho Shopping Center. We just need a little bit more space because our doctors are all in one tiny little space. And we have now currently 6,700 active patients and 5,500 clients, which is an increase of over 1,000 clients in the past 3 years. We see approximately 12 clients per day per doctor. We do about 4 to 5 surgeries a day, and our hours are generally 8 to 7, and then the weekends. We don't keep any patients overnight. We don't do any boarding. We don't do any grooming. So everything takes place within the walls of the clinic. We do wellness, routine surgeries, dental, sick pet diagnostics. We're a full service clinic, but again, we don't keep anything 24/7 and nothing's there overnight. These are pictures of the inside. I'll give you a quick tour of the inside of the clinic. So when you come to the clinic, there are 2 doors. There's the dog side and the cat side. The goal is to try to keep the dogs and the cats as separate as possible, but it's kind of a small space in the lobby. So the dogs and cats actually get quite close to each other. On the bottom left, you're looking at the view from the cat side towards the dog side. So it's just this small little area. And then in the bottom right, you're seeing the dog side of the lobby. And that's our large clinic desk where our CSRs sit. In the upper left is the hallway to the different exam rooms. We have 4 exam rooms in that hallway and 1 cat specific room on the other side. The total clinic space now is 3037, and we're proposing to be, and the total would be 4709 in the total expanded space. This is the back of our clinic. This is our current treatment area. We have in the upper left the lab pharmacy where we have all of our prescriptions and do all of our testing. The upper right is our treatment area. So dogs and cats alike are all together in that large treatment space. And the 2 people that are standing there are technicians. That's our dental space currently, which is in the current space of the whole treatment area. We would like for that to be in its own location so the dentals can go on in a different space than the main treatment area. Bottom left is our x-ray machine. We also have ultrasound, which is in the bottom right. One of our goals is to keep cats happy. We are a feline-friendly practice. We feel strongly that cats and dogs should have their own separate spaces, like I said. And so we're looking to do more of that in the new space. This is at the upper right is our current cat room for cats only. And those are 2 of our staff cats in the bottom right. And we have lots of kittens and cats that come in. We have 2,200 cat patients currently for our clinic. And we do like them to be separated. And so one of the goals of the new clinic space is to have more room for them. And we received the cat-friendly practice gold standard for the way that we treat cats and the way that we honor cats in the clinic. So what we're proposing on our new space is to have a cat-specific treatment area. I don't know if does the pointer work? Here. So this will be the treatment area. There's going to be a separate entrance for cats instead of over here, which is where it is now. Right here, the cats would come in over on the side. They'd have their own lobby, and they'd have special cat exam rooms and a cat treatment area. This area also allows for a break room for my staff. Currently, we have a kitchen, but we don't have anywhere for them to sit when they're on break. And so that will be really nice for them to have a quiet space to be. It will also have the specific dental suite so that it's not out in the middle of treatment with everything else. Just wanted to speak quickly to the back of our building. So the back of our building, the Ramellis are directly behind 1150, and they wrote a letter of support for us. They have several pets who are they're clients of ours. And so this is the back of our current space, 1150. You can see there's no doors or windows. There's no way to get back there. Nobody's gonna walk around that really steep embankment and do anything back there. And it's a very large space if you stand back there to the property line and to the fences that are back there. We haven't had any complaints or any problems with the neighbors, and like I said, they're all clients. This is another picture of the back of it. I don't have pictures of the next space over, but the next space over is Shelly's yard. And you can see her yard from the back of our building, and she has 2 dogs and she's a client. So the little part that we're moving over is Shelly's yard. And this is the side view of the edge of our clinic. So you can't get back there. There's a giant fence and there's no way to get to the back of it. And this is, I wanted to show you, the bottom right is the parking. That's where all of our staff park. So there's no issues with parking. Our staff are not on the streets, and they're not by any residences. So here's the support. So 1139 are the Ramellis, 1129 is Shelley's house, and 1121 is Morgan and Yvonne. They're also clients as well, and they all have pets. I also talked to Marty of the dance studio, who's been there forever and ever, and she's very supportive. We're really good neighbors. And so there's a letter of support from her as well on our expansion. And these are just some of our patients, and we thank you for your support, and I'll take any questions.
Any questions?
None.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, it's time for public comments on this item. I haven't received any cards. Anything else?
The person, oh, yes, they are here.
I thought it was, I thought it was an MC. Is this item? Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Good evening, Abby Aarons, 1 Main Street, Ashante Hotel. So it was all my fault. 2019, Dr. Eckert was hoping to retire, bringing on a great but experienced young veterinarian who's adorable. Don't tell her I said so. I sold his property on First Street and began the tremendous search of trying to find a place in Los Altos that would accept a veterinary clinic. Very restricted. Believe it or not, the largest spaces available are second floor, which doesn't work for an animal clinic. When I reached out to Rancho, recognizing we had the issue of the 50-foot separation, that space had been vacant almost a dozen years. The neighbors were sick and tired of what was going on out there, who was sleeping there, et cetera, and were so supportive when we reached out one by one of them. But they weren't the only ones. In 2019, there were over 100 letters of support for the veterinary clinic moving to Rancho. And Melissa has made sure that you have not heard a negative thing. It's a beautiful facility, and I do hope that you will support this so they can continue to serve the community. The piece she didn't mention, she's a Los Alton, married to a Los Alton, in the home that her doctor husband grew up in. So they are very Los Altos friendly and will continue to do so. So please support this application.
Yes, we do have one person, Terry Couture.
Do I ask her or could you ask her? I don't know if I have access to that to say, please go ahead.
Terry, you're
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I'm a neighbor. I live on Parma. This facility is so wonderful. I see the staff out walking. They take dogs out. They pick up poop. They have their own little poop thing there for dogs that come by, neighbors. They're just the nicest bunch of young people and older people. And I hope you will support them. The last few businesses that have been in there haven't done very well. And so it's perfect timing that they would like to expand into this 2 spaces. So we're looking very much forward to them being able to do that. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Stephanie on Zoom?
no, that's it.
Okay, great. So we will close the public hearing now, and it's now time for commissioner comments.
I'd like to make a motion, if that's okay.
That's
Well,
fine.
I would.
Oh,
Wait,
okay.
let's make
Yeah,
sure.
And then you go ahead and make the
No
motion.
problem.
Because
Yeah.
that's fine.
No problem.
I would like, Jolie, this is a question of law. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a question of law. Because it seems to me that the 50-foot thing has primarily to do with a nuisance. All right, smells, sounds, that sort of thing that would interfere with others. Whereas the code says interfering with the comfortable enjoyment of life. And Jolie, the question is, can kitty cats interfere with the comfortable enjoyment of life?
I think my ginger baby would tell you no, they cannot do that. They are more than welcome. So.
Jolie's cat was a fixture in some Zoom calls.
Yeah, my cat was on a
meetings.
lot of the
Yes.
Zoom calls. Yes, and my mom, my 97-year-old mom loves her and calls her ginger baby. So that's why he always teases me.
She sends me pictures of the cat. My cat died the day before the Queen, and so cats, great dogs. So I'm glad to
Let's not
see
start
that
something here, Eric.
Yeah, no. But I'm glad to see that the separation is going to be a serious separation, because I think it's very important for the important animals.
Richard, you look like you have a
Well,
comment.
as a dog owner, and
Here we go.
as an individual that is very allergic to cats, I'm delighted to see that you're going to have two different entrances. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're ready for a
I think
motion
that's
now.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I haven't done this in a while. Approve the modification of conditional use permit MOD 23-0003 and approve the variance VCMF 23-0001.
Second. Second.
Okay.
All right, let's take a vote. Stephanie, if you could call the roll.
Duran?
She's out. She's
Oh,
recused.
right, my bad.
Yeah, it's okay.
Roach? Steinle?
Yes.
Ahi?
Yes.
And Menzinger.
Yes.
So you-
Okay. Done. If we can get Commissioner Shelley back in here, we can move on to the next item. Do you think she sees me? Come on.
Is she not looking?
Okay, Commissioner Doran has rejoined us, so we'll move on to the second public hearing, item number 3, which is 236 Eleanor Avenue, and we'll start with the staff report.
Good evening, Chair Menzinger and Commissioners. My name is Sean Gallegos, Senior Planner, Planning Division. The proposed project before you today is a request for design review, a variance, and historic advisory review to allow an addition to an existing historic house, which is 2-story, consisting of an addition of 1,647 square feet at the first story, 327 square feet at the second story, and an 832 square foot basement, and a new 1-story accessory structure or garage. The variance request is to allow a basement 2.5 feet above grade that exceeds the maximum height limit of 2 feet, a 326 square foot second story addition on a flag lot, which allows only 1 structures, a height of 26.2 feet that surpasses the maximum height limit of 20 feet for flag lots, and the placement of an accessory structure in the required front yard where such structures are not permitted. The house is located on a flag lot on the east side of Eleanor, directly behind 246 Eleanor Avenue. It's conveyed on the screen, surrounded with the red lines. As stated previously, the house is listed in the Los Altos Historic Resource Inventory as a craftsman-style residence. It is a historic resource. The 2-story wood frame craftsman-style house has a square plan side gable roof with decorative wooden E-braces supporting the gable ends and exposed rafter tails. The ground floor entry porch features large front-facing gables with a balcony supported by paired square wood porch posts. And although there is a balcony that has been remodeled in 1997, it still retains its original design elements. Other paired porches connected by simple railings are located on either side of the porch. The entrance is offset to the right with 2 large plate windows, and a circular driveway surrounds a single palm tree in the center of the front yard, or the side yard per the submittal plans. The elevations you have before you show outlines in red, which indicate the area of the addition. The area without the hatch lines is the existing original historic structure. Along the left east side elevation, the proposed addition is set back to the rear from the front portico. The historic house and front roof structures are shown to remain. To show that, this is the original structure, which is intended to remain. The one-story addition is projected directly behind it, set back, and this is also set back behind the main structure. Along the right west side elevation, the rear of the house had previously been remodeled. It was not part of the original design. Maintaining the elevation of the floor plate on the historic house, in addition, provides consistency with the raised elevation of the historic house. Along the front north elevation, it shows where the roof of the addition meets the historic roof structure. And let me find that for you right here. So the north side is here. Again, the red area is where the addition is occurring. The roof intersection maintains the existing height of the historic building. As conveyed here, the existing roof does maintain the height of the existing house, does not project above the height of the existing historic property. Along the rear south elevation, we do show the connection of the addition to the historic house. The historic house and front roof structures are shown to remain at a height above the proposed addition, and the roof structures intersect with a new roof structure to create a cross gable at the second story. In line with design review guidelines, the proposed project considers the scale of the neighborhood and incorporates massing due to the use of shingle siding to diminish the appearance of bulk, the introduction of fenestration and articulation to add variation to the wall plane along the first and second story. The design of the second story aligns with the surrounding residences, featuring an 8-foot tall second story plate height that is consistent with plate heights that are found in the neighborhood that range from 8 to 9 feet. Shingles will be offset in pattern to distinguish from the new from the old, which is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards to create false historicism. And overall, the design does adhere to the single-family residential design guidelines, emphasizing the integration of elements, materials, and scale that harmonize with the diverse neighborhood character while maintaining the house's distinctive historical integrity. Careful consideration is given to avoid inauthentic representation of historical architecture in the proposed addition, ensuring compatibility with the neighborhood. The design of the garage complies with the principles of bulk and scale to maintain a balanced relationship with the historic property. The low 8-foot plates combined with the 12-foot height of the structure and the low pitch contributes to a structure that's relatively modest in bulk and scale. With regard to the advisory review, Historical Commission advisory review, the Planning Commission shall make the following findings consistent with Section 1244 of the Municipal Code. Staff's position that the project's compliance with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation will result in the project's complying with the 2 findings, and that's conveyed in the staff report. Before you are the particular findings for a design review application that the Planning Commission must make. As stated in the staff report and the resolution, attachment A, staff does believe the project complies with the findings for design review. As part of the proposal, variance is requested, as stated previously, to allow a basement 2.5 feet above grade that exceeds the maximum permitted height of 2 feet. A request to allow a second-story addition on a flag lot where a 1-story is only permitted, and to allow a height of 26.2 feet. That's where the maximum height is 20 feet for a flag lot. And a request for an accessory structure in the front yard where such structures are not allowed. The granting of a variance requires meeting the following 3 findings. Staff did find that the variance project aligns with finding number 1 and the objectives of the zoning code, allows for an addition to an existing single-family house in a manner that establishes a compatible relationship with the surrounding neighborhood. Additionally, it contributes to the conservation of a city's natural beauty, enhances its appearance, and preserves a distinctive physical character by respecting and preserving a historic property. In regards to staff Finding 2, staff found that granting the variance aligns with finding 2. It will not have a detrimental effect on individuals residing or working in the vicinity. It takes into account the well-being of the community in the proposed design, including the flag lot location, setbacks, and screening measures, ensures minimal disturbance to surrounding neighbors. In regards to finding 4, staff does believe there are unique circumstances to the property due to the placement or location of a historic property on the site. A historic property on a site does create limitations on a homeowner in regards to the limitations that are placed on them in regards to having a historic house. And staff does believe that it does maintain that the project does comply with the findings. This concludes staff's presentation. Is there any questions? Thank you.
Is an applicant report for applicant distribution?
Let me get that. Yes.
I'm here if there's any questions.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Sorry. Bill Walter.
Hello, good evening, Commissioners. I'm Walter Chapman, address 620 South Almonte in Los Altos. I've been a designer of homes here in Los Altos now for 40 years. Just giving you a little background on myself. I've actually worked on at least a dozen historical resource properties in Los Altos during that time, and was on the Historical Commission for 8 years, where I oversaw the review process for several dozen more. So when the property owner approached me on this particular site, it became very obvious to me what was the best way to approach the design. The challenge, of course, is the property is a flag lot, and by that very purpose, the rules that are applied to a flag lot would limit construction of a house like this today, since it predates the property was subdivided off. So what remains of the original estate is the house and this flag lot. So one of the things that we looked at here was how to do the addition in a way to minimize, obviously, the impact on the historical home. And that was by placing the addition behind the house and doing a large single-story wing that ran off in one perpendicular to the primary residence. The upper floor, there was an older bedroom addition that was popped out the back of the house at one time. And by doing a single-story addition on the back of the house, we were going to lose the ingress-egress window from that bedroom. So what we needed to do was to physically rotate that bedroom and reorientate its windows to look out to, as you look at the house, would be its left side, but technically is the rear yard. So this actually reduces impact on the adjoining neighbor by redirecting the windows into the largest portion of the property. But in order to do that and get the roof lines to work, we needed to expand the footprint of that upper floor. The other challenge we had, and I'm going to need to see if I can get this to do what I want it to do. To get to the second, a button. There we go. Okay. So this is the property here, and this is the single-story wing I was referring to. As you can see, it's perpendicular to the original historic home. And one of the issues that we run into with the historical houses is the finished floor level. It's not uncommon that the finished floor level on historical houses to be 3 or 4 feet above the grade level. It was about 25 years ago that the city adopted this ordinance to have houses no more than 2 feet above the grade level, because houses being built, as you can see in this diagram, 10 feet from the property line, if you have a house too high up in the air, you can see right over the fence. So in our proposed design, we're over 20 feet away. And you can see in this exhibit here that you actually, even though the floor level is 6 inches higher than is typically allowed, the visibility over the fence is less than it would be in a normal situation. Now, similar with the basement, because we're 27 feet away from the property line, the additional 6 inches of height of the finished floor really will have no visual impact from off-site. And in fact, the only light well we have to the basement, moving too fast here, here we go, is also at what would be the, as you approach the home, appears to be the rear of the house. So again, you won't be able to see the light well for the basement from off property or even from any of the neighboring homes. So we were very conscious of this fact when we did the layout of where to place all of these elements. One of the other things I want to share, well, there's the floor plan of the historical house. This was the bedroom upstairs I referred to looking out, which is now considered the right side or the rear of the building. And this is how we reoriented that upstairs bedroom to look to, again, I'm going to refer to it as the left, but it's actually the rear yard. So once we got past the issue of the floor level at 30 inches opposed to 2 feet, the next issue came up was the location of how to place a garage on the property. When you have a flag lot, typically what's considered your front yard is where your entrance comes in which this case would have been Eleanor. But because the property is rectangular as you approach it from Eleanor, the interpretation of setback is then altered or rotated to better fit the shape of the property. And so what that basically did is it took our side yard and it became our front yard. This shows the existing location of the homes, the historical house and the 3 other homes that adjoin the property that would be most impacted. But as you can see, of the other 3 homes, none of them comply with the required setbacks. And that's because one of the other properties was also built before the property was subdivided. And I'm not sure of the history of the other 2. The bottom line is, it's not uncommon in these flag lot scenarios to have properties that don't comply with standard setbacks. And so this is how we approached it. We have the proposed addition across the back, the original historical home, and this ended up with the detached garage, what is in technically the front yard, but appears to be a side yard. So the functional front yard with the driveway coming in, this made the most logical sense for the placement. The detached garage meets all the rules of a detached structure with the exception that it is, again, not in the appropriate location based on this orientation of the site. The property next door on Hawthorne, I don't have the address listed. I believe that's recently has been contracted and is up for sale, has been contracted. The assumption is that house, we showed a potential future development of where that house may end up being based on its required setbacks. So the point being is the detached garage really will have no impact on that adjoining property when and if that home and property is redeveloped. The property owner, they're out of the country right now. I think they're watching on Zoom, and can be made available if you have questions for them. The historian here is also here this evening to answer any questions, and I just brought one up, Bonnie. We never talked about was that house on the corner of Hawthorne and Eleanor. From what I understand, it was built by the original property owner of the historical house as a caretaker home. And again, I don't know anything more about it than the hearsay that gets passed down or oral history. So if there's any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. And I say Mrs. Bamberg's here as well for answering any questions for you. And I wanted to thank Sean for a very thorough report. I wish he had a chance to read all of it out loud because I thought it was very well done. Thank you.
I do, and maybe it's more for the historian than for Mr. Chapman. Thank you very much for your presentation, by the way. It was very helpful. And I agree that Sean's report was really very good. I told him before we started. It was very lyrical, and I think he outdid himself. Do we have any sense of what was on the property before the subdivision? Because the subdivision is from not that long ago.
Typically, what you would see, and what was the case in this, is that the house set back from the road, and it had a large, we would call it the front yard. It would have trees, and would have a walkway, probably an arbor, could even have had a gazebo, although I don't think this one did.
Then the front yard would have been facing Eleanor, is that right? It was all off Eleanor?
The front of the house faces Eleanor, and that was the front to the street.
Right. Were there sheds and other farm?
Those would typically be in the
so.
back. This property has been subdivided not only for the flag lot, but before that as well. The sheds, the things that had noise or odors, were typically in the back.
Okay. But there were no other structures right around the house necessarily.
That's true.
Right. In 1914, there weren't lots of garages.
Yeah. And there would likely have been a straight drive from Eleanor to the back.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any public comments on this issue, either Zoom or in person?
And there are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, then we will close the public hearing. And it's open now for commissioner comments. Jump right in.
I'm going to want to hear what Harris has to say about the design itself, but
I commend Mr. Chapman on the detailed work that you went into to try and keep the historical architectural details of it, putting the addition in the back. I was looking at it and seen lots of additions on historical houses, and I commend you on the job and the consideration you gave to it, and trying to fit it in, again, the unusualness of the flag lot. So I think you did a good job on it. Thank you.
Well, you might be disappointed because I don't really have much to say.
I'm not disappointed at all.
I think, everything was very well explained by the staff report. I think that the architect and did a great job answering all the kind of, issues. I'm in support of all three items.
Yeah, I've been around town like almost 40 years, and that's been my favorite neighborhood because of the development and because of the gardens that used to be there. And I just think you treated this very sensitively to the neighbors and to the land, and we thank you for that.
Any other?
Did you want to make a motion?
Well, I was just going to say, I just want to echo what was said up here. And I think the fact that you're reading through the Historical Commission's report as well, I think they also applaud both Sean for his report, but as well as the architect in the historical references. So well done.
So I move.
Yeah.
I don't have the number in front of me, but if someone wants to make a motion with the.
And seconded.
Okay.
And I think we're ready.
Duran.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Steinle.
Yes.
Ahi.
Yes.
And Mensinger.
Yes. Great. Okay, we're moving right along. Any commissioner reports or comments? And thank you all. Thank you.
I did. I think I was to monitor the last city council meeting, which I did. Maybe it was two back, and there was nothing that affected the planning commission.
Okay, thank you. We are moving on then to potential future agenda items, and I believe also I had asked Nick to give us a brief update on the housing element. So.
Yeah, so
Nick, it's in your part.
thanks, Commissioners. So this isn't a formal agenda item. It's just kind of reporting out as an informational item. The community, as well as the media, is also already becoming more and more aware. Last week, we did find out we were not approved by HCD or the state. Unfortunately, they still find that the housing element has 2 outstanding bullet points that we need to address. However, myself as well as the housing element consultants had a positive discussion with HCD staff today, actually this morning, and we're confident that we'll be able to come to an amicable agreement and receive a quick turnaround on the next resubmittal to the state. So this is kind of standard and par for the course. There's other jurisdictions that have already been approved that are neighboring and nearby. However, every housing element is different for the makeup and composition of our socioeconomics and demographics and everything else that goes into the overall final product of a housing element. So with that though, however, we have been moving forward with our housing element as the items that have already been before the commission as well as the council. Those are items that do not they're not affected by the lack of a formally approved document. What remains outstanding is essentially our site inventory and just providing extra data about some of our non-vacant sites as it relates to the potential of redevelopment for those sites in the near future. So again, I think we're in good standings. It's just we need to kind of iron out a couple things that the state requested additional information on.
And if we had any requests for builders remedy,
We have, yes, we did receive one. However, I will at least preface is that the application is something that was already previously in for a preliminary review and just is a little bit of an expansion on the previous application. So it's not a surprising receival of a project. It's very different than what other jurisdictions are experiencing.
Is it First Street?
It is on First Street, yes.
Any potential timeline without trying to pin it down when you might get your end of this to the state?
So we're going to be working pretty closely this time around. So the city of Los Altos was not afforded the standard of review that other jurisdictions have been previously given, where they're allowed essentially a preliminary phone call about halfway through each review period to be able to potentially iron out some of these outstanding comments. For whatever reason, Los Altos was not prioritized and received that as other jurisdictions have. So with that, we will be receiving that this time, as I was guaranteed that from the senior housing analyst at HCD, who is actually the individual that undersigns our letters. So with that, I think we're going to be moving pretty quickly, but I also want to iron that out as best as we can. So I'm hoping to have the formal resubmittal to them by August.
and any future agenda items, oh, I'm sorry, Richard. Any future agenda items that you want to alert us to?
Yes, so in August you will be seeing what we're going to consider as a specialized housing kind of package. It's 4 outstanding items that actually were in last housing elements 8-year cycle that previously was never brought forward to the commission. These are 4 very simplified ordinances that are pretty specific and regimented. There's not really much. It's just an application of state law that we need to integrate into our local ordinances. So with that, we'll have those, but that is going to be kind of a meatier agenda item because it is 4 separate items as they'll be adopted as individual chapters. However, they are somewhat all integrated to one another.